Picture this: one man, two armies, and a plan so dangerous it shouldn't have worked. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte, and the world would never be the same. Even now, 200 years later, generals still open his playbook every single day. It was 1796, and Napoleon was 26 years old, and nobody took him seriously yet. He stood between two enemy armies, 25,000 Piedmontese and 30,000 Austrians. Alone, his 38,000 could handle either, but together, they would destroy him. So Napoleon did something his enemies never expected: he lied. He sent cavalry charging east toward Genoa, making it look like a full-scale assault. While Austrian eyes turned east, the real French army moved silently west. On April 11, 1796, he struck the Austrians at Montenotte before they knew what was coming. The Austrian garrison broke and ran within hours. Napoleon didn't stop, he never stopped, pushing south toward Montesimo. By April 14th, Montesimo had fallen, and the two allied armies were now permanently separated. Even the brilliant Piedmontese General Caseria was caught completely off guard, and killed in the chaos. By April 21st, the entire Piedmontese army had been destroyed, in just 10 days. Divide. Deceive. Destroy. This was Napoleon's formula, and he had just proven it worked. 9 years passed, and Napoleon only grew more dangerous. By 1805, three empires had united with one single goal: stop Napoleon. Austria, Russia, and Britain formed the Third Coalition, the most powerful alliance Europe had ever assembled. Austrian General Mack marched 60,000 troops into Bavaria, confident, experienced, and walking into a trap. Napoleon's Grande Army pivoted east from the English Channel coast in a single breathtaking movement. Mack believed he had time to fortify Ulm and wait for Russian reinforcements from the east. He was catastrophically wrong about the speed of what was coming. Instead of attacking from the west, Napoleon swung his entire army north, then east, behind Mack. French troops crossed the Danube River behind the Austrian position in the darkness of night. To buy time, Napoleon sent his cavalry thundering west, making Mack think the frontal assault was coming. While Mack watched the cavalry, French forces quietly sealed every road out of Ulm. Every road. North. South. East. West. All blocked. When Mack realized the truth, the net was already closed. He tried one desperate breakout, and it was crushed. With supplies gone and Russians 160 miles away, Mack surrendered, 30,000 of his best men with him. Napoleon later said Mack had the look of a man who had seen the world collapse on him. On November 12, 1805, Napoleon marched into Vienna, unopposed. But winter was coming, and his army was deep in enemy territory. He needed one final, decisive battle, and he knew exactly where to fight it. Days before the battle, Napoleon personally scouted the terrain near Austerlitz, alone, in the dark. What he saw there became one of the most brilliant battle plans in human history. The Allied army, 85,000 Russians and Austrians, outnumbered him. But their commander was a 27-year-old Tsar who had never lost a battle, because he had never really fought one. Napoleon saw Alexander's ambition, and decided to use it as a weapon. He deliberately weakened his right flank, leaving it thin, inviting attack. And he abandoned the Pratzen Heights, the most important ground on the battlefield. He wanted Alexander to take those heights, because it would leave the Allied center completely exposed. December 2, 1805, the battlefield was wrapped in thick fog at dawn. At 7 a.m., the Allies attacked exactly where Napoleon wanted them to, his weak right flank. The French defenders held, stubbornly, desperately, buying Napoleon the time he needed. The Allied center poured south, and the Pratzen Heights began to empty. Then the sun broke through the fog, and Napoleon gave the signal. French columns surged out of the mist and charged straight up the Pratzen Heights. The fighting was brutal, chaotic, hand-to-hand combat at the summit of Europe's most important hill. By 11 a.m., the French held the Pratzen Heights, and the Allied army had been cut in half. Then Napoleon turned his guns downward, and fired on his own trapped enemies below. Thousands of Allied soldiers fled south across the frozen lakes, running for their lives. French artillery fired onto the ice itself, and the ice cracked. Tsar Alexander, who had marched in confidence that morning, sat alone that evening, and wept. Austria signed a humiliating peace. Russia withdrew entirely. The Third Coalition was gone. In a single day, Napoleon had ended a war, and secured his place in history forever. 3 campaigns. 3 masterpieces. 3 lessons that no army has ever fully learned. Speed. Deception. The courage to attack where they least expected. Rommel studied these exact battles in the deserts of North Africa, 135 years later. Patton kept a translation of Napoleon's campaigns beside his field bed throughout World War II. West Point still teaches Austerlitz as the perfect battle. Because Napoleon didn't just win battles, he invented a new way of thinking about war itself. His greatest weapon was never his army, it was always his mind. He saw the battlefield not as it was, but as it would be, 3 moves ahead. Every enemy he faced thought they understood war, until they met Napoleon. Mack thought he understood war. He surrendered 30,000 men without a real battle. Alexander thought he understood war. He wept alone in a field while his empire bled. The Austrian commanders laughed at Napoleon's name in 1796, and never laughed again. Because Napoleon understood something they refused to see, war is not about armies, it's about minds. The side that wins the psychological battle wins the real battle, every single time. Napoleon made his enemies fight on his terms, always, in every campaign, in every battle. The moment they fought on his terms, they had already lost, they just didn't know it yet. His name is carved into the Arc de Triomphe, alongside victories that shaped the modern world. Montenotte, Ulm, Austerlitz. 3 moves. 3 masterpieces. 3 reasons we still speak his name today. He ended his life in exile on a tiny island in the South Atlantic, watching the ocean. But the mind that broke empires never truly stopped moving. His hat sits in a Paris museum today, behind glass, under lights, still drawing crowds. 1 billion visitors have stood before it, all wondering the same thing. If Napoleon commanded a modern army, using satellites, drones, and real-time intelligence, could anyone stop him? Leave your answer below.